Thank you for having me. As you know, I am Dr. Vondell. I just completed my doctorate in human services in January of 2022 and just had my commencement.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
Yeah, we just had the hooding and commencement ceremony 2 weeks ago on the 21st and 22nd. And so, yeah, it's official. And I've been working with, well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I received my bachelor's and my master's in psychology. And my master's was in a specialization in marriage and family therapy, where I focused on families and singles as well, and helping them to create like healthier relationships, stronger relationships, and also working on issues within themselves so that they would be that right person when the right person came along. And also my focus has been the last couple of years on getting the diaspora to understand the importance of, if not relocating to Alkebula in Africa, to at least visit. I went to Ghana in January, and that was the most amazing experience. I was there for 3 weeks. I went to 6 different regions, and just being on the continent, there's such a, I want to say there's like a spiritual awakening. I went to the castles, or they're not really castles, they're dungeons, and just being in the presence of the past or our history, I couldn't stop crying. Like I couldn't stop crying. When you understand what our forefathers went through, and you could see like the petrified ground where their waste, I mean, it was all of their waste, their blood, their tears, their excrement. It was so high that in your mind you could just picture what they went through. Like there wasn't, like most people are used to going to a bathroom, you know, you have a toilet, it's clean. They had to relieve themselves on top of themselves, basically. And there was only like these tiny little windows at the top that let in very, very little light. I mean, it was worse than an animal. It was really, it just, words can't describe. I'll start crying again, but it was just very disturbing. But it was something that needed to be experienced. And I think that all the diaspora need to go to some part of Alkebulan where the transatlantic slave trade happened, or maybe the Muslim slave trade, because the Muslim slave trade happened before the transatlantic. So people need to know that. They need to know their history. They need to get their DNA done through African ancestry, not the other ones, because we'll just say those may not be the most accurate. We'll just put that out there. So, but the African ancestry is founded by the diaspora, and they're looking at specifically African DNA. So, and that will let people know specifically what region their ancestors came from. And yeah, so that's me in a little nutshell. And also I'm a veteran of the Air Force. So I served 6 years as an education specialist. So a lot of my passion is in education and enlightening people, educating them to our history and about the truths that have been hidden and that are coming out right now.
Thank you so much for that. I was just wondering when you were explaining what happened there when you went to Ghana and you saw those little tiny places where people were held and how they were held, no? First, why did you go there? What made you to go there? Can you let us know a bit about that?
Okay, so I chose Ghana because, like a lot of the diaspora, I haven't been awoke for a while. And within the last, I would say, 2.5 years was my awakening. And when I started to be awakened to the truths about our ancestors, our forefathers, I started doing my own research into the truths, like dispelling the lies and getting into the truth. And when I started that, I went on to LinkedIn and I started meeting people from the continent. And when I started meeting people and connecting with people from Alkebulan, I'll call it Alkebulan, it's Africa, but Alkebulan is the ancient name for it. So I started wondering more about the different countries on the continent. And when I first started doing my research, I ran across Ghana, and they did the year of return, which was, I think, in 2018 or 2019. And I'd missed out on that. So what the government did was it opened Ghana to all of the diaspora. They were giving away free land. And for anyone in the diaspora that wanted to return, they were letting them return. So again, I learned about it like a year after, so I missed out on that part. So they did the year of beyond the year of return after that, where they weren't really giving away land. They were just asking people to come and invest in Ghana. So when I learned about that, I thought, this is a great idea. This is perfect. I mean, this is a way for the diaspora to get to know at least one of the countries, on the continent. And from there, they can, venture out to other countries. So a couple of my connections, one of them I reached out to, and I told him that, I was going to be coming to Ghana. And so I started making my plans, and I said, you know what, I'm going to create a business where I can help other people, who want to, go to Ghana. And so I created my business. It was Pride of Africa Travel, which has been turned into Pride of Africa Consulting, because it's not just travel. So it's also consulting about relationships on the continent. So anyways, so I made my plans and everything, and I was able to go there in January. I was supposed to stay for a month, but I saw as much as I needed to see in Ghana in 3 weeks. Like I said, I went to 6 different regions and learned about, the history, of the different regions. Kumasi has so much history, with the war against the British and how the queens, kind of band together and they helped the men to defeat the British. And it just, so much history. So that was where I guess my love and my passion really started, because I was able to be there. I was able to see the strengths that Ghana has, as well as her weaknesses. I did a lot of postings on LinkedIn about my experiences in the different regions, as well as I did a final posting of my complete assessment of Ghana. And I was very honest with her strengths as well as her weaknesses. And I got a lot of feedback from people who said that my assessment was really was accurate. Ghana, as wonderful as she is, the government is very enamored with the West, which is not wisdom. Not to put the West down, but just being transparent and honest, the West is only interested in the West. So, and that's the UK, the US, and all of the other Western countries. I did a lot of postings on a lot of what the West has done against Al-Kebulin and against its people. And as we know, with the Ukraine war or conflict with Russia, our people, Africans, have been treated very badly. And I did a lot of postings on that. And unfortunately, because of the media's hype about Ukraine, a lot of people in the diaspora and even on the continent sided with the Ukraine instead of looking at the fact that Russia has always been a helper and someone who has been there for Al-Kebulin. Like when South Africa, the apartheid was happening in South Africa, the Western nations were on the side of the apartheid people in South Africa, and the only people who stood with us was Russia. Russia armed our people in South Africa, the South Africans, the Black South Africans, not the people that are calling them South Africans that are European, but the Black South Africans. Russia armed them so that they can fight against them. And because of Russia's help, that was one of the reasons why our apartheid ended, because they were able to arm themselves and fight. So I say all that just to go back to say that, Ghana is still enamored with the West. They've opened their doors to the French, which Mali has kicked the French out. Burkina Faso has kicked the French out. And Ghana is saying, oh, okay, well, you can come here. That's not a good idea. That's not wisdom. Every place that the French has been they've left it worse. And the fact that the US has opened up so many different military bases throughout Al-Kebulin, that's not a good indicator either. Anytime they come in, their presence is there not to help, but to exploit.
Now, you are an Air Force veteran, and you are from the armed forces from the United States. So when you see many African leaders getting hooked up in this unholy romance between the West and Africa, what usually come to your mind? Especially, okay, we can look at the defense now, no?
Yeah.
For example, you can look at the AFRICOM, for example, that was set up to, they said they wanted to defend the interests of Africa, which I have said again a number of times. There is no armed forces in the world, there is no country in the world who uses its armed forces to defend another country. It doesn't happen, except maybe they have a certain interest there that they are protecting.
Yeah.
Because the training, the infrastructure, the military, everything about the defense is costly. So I don't know why one will do that for free for a country. Or maybe that is something that we are not telling ourselves.
Yeah, I think because the US is very strong militarily, and because, again, this is just me being transparent, and this is my assessment, is that they are a bully. And you're probably saying, well, right, but you serve them, like you were in the military, you're a veteran. Right. But again, I'll just go back to that. I've only been awakened to all of these truths. I mean, I believe the lies. I believe that America was a Christian nation, which is far from the truth. I believed all of the lies that I was taught since I was a child about this country, because who was teaching me? The enemy was teaching me. The people who oppressed people were teaching me. So of course, just like so many in the diaspora, but we're all being awakened. Fortunately, my awakening happened again like 2.5 years ago. Other people are being awakened now. So all of the lies that they told us about this nation, all of the truths are coming out now. So people don't have that false impression of the US, of the West any longer, because everything that they've done, even like we'll use Libya for a perfect example. Anytime the US and the Western nations see something that they want, some type of resource that they want, they will demonize that person. Like we'll just use Gaddafi as an example. So they'll demonize the person, which they demonized Gaddafi. They said that he was a tyrant, that he was killing his people. That was not true. So because they created that false narrative, and the media, which is in bed with all of these politicians, the propaganda from the media went out about Libya. So everybody had this negative image of Libya, of Gaddafi, and said, oh, he's evil, he's this, he's that. And so because the US went in, they bombed Libya. Libya was doing really well. Libya now, because the US went in and bombed Libya is in the Stone Age right now. I mean, it's all of what Gaddafi had done for his country, all of that has been ruined. All of that has been for naught. And all of the gold, because ultimately that was what he was doing. He created this economic system that was going to make Libya financially independent from the oppressors, from the colonizers. The US and the West will never allow that, never. So the only thing that I can say that Gaddafi did that was wrong was letting his plans be known before they were ready to be implemented. And I would say this for any African nation. Don't do that. If you have something that you're going to do, a way to get the West and the US off of, from around your neck, that yoke from around your neck, just do it. Create it and do it. After you created it and implemented it, then you can announce it. But don't do it before then, because they will stop you the same way that they stopped Gaddafi. They will demonize you, and then they will come in and they will bomb you the same way that they did with Libya. And what happened to all of that gold? What happened to all of that gold? We know the US went in and they stole it. So, again,
But if somebody were thinking, even by mere common sense, no? Because you are talking of the United States now in terms of what happened in Libya. But maybe somebody will ask a similar question to the European Union, to the countries in Europe who also participated in their so-called Odyssey Dawn. Because after they broke Libya, a lot of African immigrants started to pour into Europe from Libya, because they were getting to Libya, they were getting jobs, they didn't need to come to Europe. Because now, the immigration has become a very big debate in Europe. But nobody is asking the politicians, nobody is trying to hold them accountable for the immigration, because they have been the one that actually created this immigration crisis. Because if they didn't break Libya, these people will not come here. Now, instead of maybe facing the real issue, which is holding the politician accountable for their miscalculation, they are taking the anger against immigrants that are coming here. For example, just to make an instance, no? So at the end of the day, like you said, the West are only for their interests and have always been and will always be. I come to think of it, it makes sense. Why should they be for our interests? everyone should be for his own interest.
Right,
But
but not to
yeah,
not to the point of even okay, so I do understand that you're saying why shouldn't they be for their own interests, but not to the point where you demonize other people and you destroy their land. Okay, like okay, so if they wanted the gold, which they did, and they want other resources, which they do, instead of bombing the places, they this is their pattern. They go into different countries and that's what they do. Weapons of mass destruction under who is that, Bush? And everyone found out that there were no weapons of mass destruction. You just wanted their resources. So just be honest. Just be honest. Just go in and take it. You have the might, you have the ability. No one's gonna stop you. I mean, no one has stopped you. So just be honest. Go in and just take it. Why kill them? I mean, they killed Gaddafi's family, his little babies. Like, why? You don't have to do that. You're strong enough that you don't have to. So going back to Russia and Ukraine, I mean, we can see the same thing with that. Russia has enough sense, and I don't fully trust them. I appreciate their help with Al-Kebulin, I do, but they have that same DNA. They have the same DNA as the West. So although I appreciate their help, I still watch them, you know. So just to say that, so with the Ukraine conflict, the US started in 2015 with arming Ukraine, with training Ukraine and the Nazis that were what's it called, the Azov Battalion. That was a part of, or is a part of, the Ukrainian military. That's a Nazi group. Okay, so the U.S. didn't care about that. They went in, they armed them, they sent them money, and for the purpose of getting Ukraine strong, so that when this war started, because they always prepare, believe me, they always prepare. This started back in 2015. So this is what, 2022, and this war started what, in 2022. So they had to prepare them. They had to get them ready and strong and buffed and supplied with all of this armament. And in order to go in, and because what they thought they were going to do and what they have done, because the world is seeing it, even though the media is giving a certain propaganda, which a lot of people are buying into, that Ukraine, oh, poor Ukraine, and Russia's the big bad guy. Well, they don't look at the fact that the US instigated that war. The US instigated it along with the Western nations. Russia's defending its territory, which, again, I wish to God that all African nations would follow suit with what Russia's doing. Russia has made itself completely self-sustaining. Al-Kebulin has all of the resources we can be sustaining. And I say we because I consider myself an African, even though, I'm still here. So it's my lineage. So we have all of the resources where we could be self-sustaining if we traded amongst ourselves instead of relying on the West for anything. We have our own oil. I mean, the oil is on the ground in Nigeria. We have our own oil. The US and other nations are coming to Al-Kebulin asking us for oil. We don't even realize what we have. We're sitting on all of this wealth, all of these resources, all of these riches. We have so much farmland. We will never, like, they might have issues with grain and with food. We will never have that. We will never have
but
that.
but do you know that as the war is going on in Ukraine, a lot of African governments are crying of lack of food as a result of that. Because yes, we have this land that is out there. There is this young population that is supposed to be put to work. and yet we can't do the common mathematics. Don't you think we are having some problem here? I mean, us,
Yeah.
our Africans.
Yes. Yeah, because we're not working with each other. Okay, so when the colonizers came in, okay, they came in and then, okay, so they say they left, but financially they have not left. Okay. What they did was they set brother against brother because we are, as a continent, we are brethren. Okay, there's nobody else that looks like us. Nobody. So what they did was they divided us. That's why you don't have you're starting to see some countries working together. Okay, those countries that are starting to work together, they're starting to trade within, the borders or amongst the borders, which is what should happen throughout all of the continents. Every single resource that every single nation in El Kebulin, all of the resources that they need are on the continent. If we open up our borders amongst each other and started trading amongst each other, one of the things that I heard was that farmers from one country cannot send food to another country. Why is that? Why? That should not be. We are one. We are a continent. No one in the West should tell us who we can send food to or who we can't send food to. Those leaders that are puppets in El Kebulin, because again, that's what the West does too. We've had amazing leaders, and what they do is they take out those honorable, ethical leaders and they put puppets in some of those countries in El Kebulin so that they'll do the bidding of the West to keep things divided, and so that we're not working amongst ourselves within our different countries so that we can sustain each other.
All
Russia
right.
doesn't do that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
In the midst of this, do you think maybe the diaspora have any role to play in trying to straighten up this situation? Because many of them are living here. For example, like your generation have been here forever now.
Mhm,
Now there are these other Africans that are coming in, be part of the diaspora.
mhm.
Because they live in the West, they understand the system here a bit better than maybe some other persons in Africa because they have not been here physically. Do you think there is a role that the diaspora can play try to straighten up this issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that I created the business, was because I wanted, one, for the diaspora to connect to their African roots. You know, again, even if they don't want to relocate, just visit, so that they can see that, one, there's one place on the earth where they're not going to be looked at differently, that they're not going to be looked down upon. They're not going to be ostracized because of the melanin in their skin. The diaspora is very strong. The people that are in the different countries throughout the world who are the diaspora are doing really well financially. If a lot of them are sending money back to their family members on the continent, but my desire beyond just sending money back, invest in the continent, invest in her. Like, for instance, when Ghana did the year of return and beyond the year of return, they were asking for the diaspora to invest. And what we did, within 1 year, we brought billions of dollars into Ghana. I don't know where all of it went because, again, Ghana is still a little enamored with the West, and we'll just leave it at that. So not sure where all the money went. So we'll just leave it at that. So
I'm sure the money fell inside the hole. Maybe the rat took it and they ran away with it.
you know, I don't know. Look, yeah, but I know that billions of dollars did come in. So yeah, the diaspora, because we are so strong and because we are angry and because we are woke, many of us are woke now. We want to strengthen the continent. We want to be investors in the continent so that what we see happening doesn't continue to happen. I'll use Ethiopia as a great example. When Italy went in to fight against Ethiopia, and thank God they were only there for 5 years, and they never truly colonized Ethiopia, but they had a strong presence there for 5 years. But Ethiopia kicked them out. They had they fought with them and they kicked them out. A lot of the people in the US, the diaspora in the US, signed up to go and fight with Ethiopia to free them, so that the Italians would leave sooner. But because the US government, again, is who they are, they prevented the diaspora from going. So because so many things are changing right now, and I believe that with the new world order, that if the diaspora don't make that move now, at least to go or to relocate, that it's going to be really hard for them to do that in the future because of all of the controls that will be put into place. So if no one takes anything else from this, just know that things are about to change because of the new world order. More controls.
Tell me more about that new world order.
Okay, so I don't know if you've ever heard of the World Economic Forum, but the World Economic Forum is a group of billionaires who have an agenda to control all people, like throughout the world. And their agenda is to have people microchip. They said by 2030, they want everyone to be microchipped. They want everyone to have, or every government to have a way to be able to track every person's movements, what they buy, and what they, basically their lifestyle. So that if they see you trying to purchase something that they deem not appropriate for you, they can block it. And we can see that sort of happened. It began on a smaller scale in Canada just recently, a few months ago, when the truck drivers went on strike because they said that they didn't want to take the shot. So because they went on strike and they said that they didn't want to take the shot, the government of Canada seized their accounts, seized all of their bank accounts. So most people would say, how can a government take people's money? Well, they did it. So that lets me know that it is plausible, it is possible, because it did happen. And then for the World Economic Forum wanting to have that type of control over everyone, that lets me know that their goal of 2030, implementing that is, it is a possibility. So, and again, with the diaspora, if they're wanting to leave, I would leave now. I would leave before that happens and before those restrictions and all of that control starts, because you're not going to be able to move around freely. Because if the Western nations see that we're trying to band together, to unite, to strengthen Alkebulan, because they've wanted us divided and they've not wanted Alkebulan to be strong, they're going to thwart that, and I can't allow it. I mean, I can't without saying something.
This new world order, this chipping of the people, is it something that is designed for against the African people, or is something global?
Okay, so it's global. It's global because again, what they're wanting to do is a microchipping system where they can track. They're saying that they want to make things easier for people to be able to purchase things so that they don't have to worry about, like a credit card or anything like that. So the microchip would be easier for them to just be able to kind of like wave their hand, and they would be able to make their purchases. And it's not that simple though. It's a form of control, and I don't know again how this is going to affect Alkebulan, but other than the fact that there are certain puppets, political puppets that the West has put into place in certain countries in Alkebulan. So I would just presume that because they are puppets of the West, that those countries, like we can look at who's it, like Rwanda right now, how Rwanda with the refugees, what African nation looks to the UK, and I'm using Rwanda as this example because this is what they're doing. They're looking to the UK to tell them who can come into their country, which refugees can be allowed into their country. It's their country. It's not the UK's country. So why are they looking at the UK? So again, that's just an example of a puppet being put into place and them hearkening to the voice of the West, in this case, the UK, telling them which refugees can be allowed into Rwanda. That makes no sense to me. Like, the UK is not Rwanda. Why are you listening to, I know why you're listening to them, because you're a puppet. You're one of their puppets, so you're going to do their bidding. So, but that's just an example. So I think that the way that it will come into Alkebulan is through these puppets that the West has in place, because ultimately they want it to be worldwide. So, and Alkebulan is part of the world.
Don't you think maybe there are some logistics that will even make the chip to function? Because, or don't you think that at a point, if it come to that the people are going to be able to resist at a point? Because not everybody is going to sign up for things like this. A good case in sight would be maybe like the COVID-19 situation, no? You see, there are some people that didn't believe that is actually the whole truth. And they stood out and began to speak out against it. If maybe the World Economic Forum and all the big players in the world decide that they want to chip everybody, there is going to be resistance, I want to believe. Or don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad that you used that example with the shot with COVID. So if you remember with Ghana, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with what happened with Ghana, but Ghana mandated people to get the shot. Okay, so thank God for the lawyers in Ghana who said no, that's unconstitutional. So they fought it. Unfortunately, some people did go along with the mandate and did get the shot, but enough people and the lawyers fought it at the constitutional level and said it's unconstitutional. How can you mandate something that hasn't been proven and that hasn't been accepted by the Food and Drug Administration in Ghana? Like, how can you mandate something that they haven't put their stamp of approval on? So fortunately, because of that fight, and again, thank God for those lawyers, the mandate had to be lifted. But there were some people, because of that mandate, the initial mandate, who did get it. So going back to what we were discussing earlier about all of the different troops that the US has in LCAP, that's not a mistake. That's by design. That's by design. As you know, in this country, in the US, there's been so much gun violence And so many people are saying, oh, we need legislation about guns. Well, when the people aren't armed, or we'll say the law-abiding citizens aren't armed, the criminals will always have guns. They're not going to give up their guns. So the criminals will have guns, and the military will have guns. So in El Kebulin, guns aren't, at least in my understanding, and I'll just use Ghana, guns aren't something that people buy or purchase for protection. Again, going back to all of the military bases in El Kebulin, all throughout the countries in El Kebulin, it's by design. So if people are not armed and you have a strong military force there, if governments worldwide are being told that everyone needs to take this chip, okay, and for those who don't, they will be, and this is just the worst case scenario. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm just saying this is the worst case scenario. For people who refuse the chip, if the military can be used to, we'll say, persuade people into
Of
changing
course,
their
then.
mind. Yeah. And you can't do anything because you're not armed. And again, I'm not telling people to go out to buy weapons or anything like that. I'm just saying I would rather be on the side of caution and protecting my family. Hopefully my husband would protect me. But so, and hopefully he would have the good sense to arm himself, because there was this one country, and I forget which one it was, in El Kebulin, but I think it was the British that went. Yeah, it was the British. They went in and they were raping the men and the women. The women and the men. I know you're gonna say the men. I mean, yeah, they both. It was just disgusting. So because they had the might, they had the power, they had the artillery. So because people weren't armed, they couldn't protect themselves. I mean, what man is going to let himself be raped? I mean, what man is going to do that? Like a woman might, because she's weak and she can't defend herself, but hopefully her husband will defend her. So my thoughts along that line is, if they try to do it in El Kebulin, that's the way that they'll do it. They'll use the military power that's there in order to bring this about, because again, the people aren't armed. And using South Africa as a great example, again, the reference that I used with Russia, the only reason that they won that was because Russia gave them arms. Nobody else was going to give them arms, nobody, but Russia did, and they were able to defeat their enemy, and apartheid ended. You can look at Haiti and look at what happened in Haiti. Haiti, the Haitians armed themselves and they killed the French. I mean, they were going and they were slaughtering them. So the French left, and Haiti was the first country to be free from slavery, because they went in and they armed themselves and they fought. Sometimes turning the other cheek is not the answer. Sometimes you do have to fight, especially against a force that is armed. Like,
All right. Now,
okay.
over there, see, you
Okay.
see, looking at the issue of arms and army and even the proliferation of weapons, let me just put it like this. You see, in Africa, there is it's quite strange how the European and their Western ally operate in Africa. This is a very strange combination of things.
Mhm.
You see, in Ukraine, the war that is going on there, there are a lot of weapons that are coming into the territory. Because Ukraine has become a theater of war. Many Western power are using it to demonstrate certain things, to just test certain things, no? So weapons are coming from different countries, not only not only from the United States and France. So what I mean by that is that different European and Western countries produce their weapons. But in Africa, it's not that the people are too stupid, they are not able to produce weapons. But there is this kind of very sinister agreement with the Western power that they are going to defend Africa. For this reason, Africa don't produce weapons. It appears to me that African powers are relying on their competitors to supply them the means of their survival. So I don't understand how that is going to work.
It's not.
So you that is coming from the defense background, maybe you might get a better sense from it, because for me, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't understand. I don't understand why okay, I'll use this analogy. So if you know that your enemy doesn't have your best interest at heart, because repeatedly they've shown you that they don't have your best interest at heart, why would you trust them to defend you? Why would you trust them to do the right thing by you? They're not going to. Like you said before, their self-interests are just that, their self-interests. They continue to exploit Alkebulan. They continue to colonize her financially. So to think that they would defend you, that's not wisdom. That's not. Again, just looking at Russia, Russia has had a friendly relationship with Alkebulan, but they have helped us. They have. I'm not going to say that they haven't, because they have. And again, I thank them for that. But again, they still have the same DNA as the West. So I can't fully trust them, but I will say that I trust them to do the right thing as far as supplying us with weapons, because they do know what the real threat is. They do know that the West is the real threat. They do know that the US is the real threat. They know that if given the opportunity, the US would occupy Russia. It won't, because Russia is self-sustaining. Russia is extremely strong. Russia learned from World War II, and this is something that Africans haven't learned. Like, they haven't learned from their past. Like, I don't understand, the people who colonized you, the people who continue to exploit you, are the people that you continue to look to for help. Like, that makes no sense. That's not wisdom. That's not wisdom. They don't have your best interest at heart. They have their best interest at heart, but they don't have your best interest at heart. Again, it's by design that the US has all of these military bases throughout Alkebulan. It's by design. When it's time for them to act, and believe me, they will, because that's their nature, they will do what they do best.
I think Africa is even complex in itself, no? Because it's not a country. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Several United States can be put into Africa, no? So it's going to be a difficult thing to chew just once. So it needs let me use the word again, it's just a complicated situation. But of course, we see that a lot of small European countries, that look at Portugal, for example, Spain, coming to take all the space. Look at small country like Britain coming to take all the space that they take in Africa. Of course, these are be product of planning, of
Mhm.
strategy, of
Yeah.
several years, centuries
Yeah.
of work, of collaboration among themselves, where we have not been able to collaborate.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we need to find a solution. This is the time for us to find a solution. So this is where I'm trying to see
Absolutely.
what the diaspora and also those at home can do.
Mhm.
Because now, if you look at Africa, like I said again,
Mhm.
it's very complicated. So you don't understand it easily. Like for example, uh, Israel decided to build a nuclear weapon. They
Mhm.
armed themselves to the teeth.
Mhm.
And when they wanted to explain it, why they have to do that, they said they don't want what happened in Nazi Germany to repeat itself again. In case
Exactly.
of next time, they want to defend themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And who,
Exactly.
who would say to the Israel that they don't have any reason to defend themselves?
Exactly.
Now, we are talking of 6 million people that died in Jews, people that died now, but we have more than 15 million, more than 20 million Africans that died.
Exactly.
Only African people don't have any reason to defend themselves in case there is danger. In case of army, they did it. We are not arming ourselves. Our countries, the country that we have, still continuously rely on the opposite. Okay, I don't want to call Europe enemy, but they are
They are.
certainly
They are.
competitors.
No, they're the enemy. They are.
Okay, so in this case, we shouldn't rely on our competitor to subsidize us.
Exactly.
So this is why I say it is complicated to understand. Why would you have a government that want another government to to subsidize their operation in terms of military research? Because we can do all we can to blame the European and the West if we like, but I'm always trying to look for our responsibility at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
I agree. I
we
agree.
cannot survive. We cannot survive by just by relying on the mercy of another person. That if they decide not to attack us, then we are living in peace. That is not a strategy. The
No,
strategy should be: what if they attack in the night?
exactly. And that's their motive. I mean, that's their mode of operation. Like look at I don't know if you're familiar with the Black Panthers. It was a group who of blacks in the US, and they armed themselves. They they armed themselves to the teeth. They weren't, you know, threatening anyone, but they stood around with their rifles, and they were just a strong force. And because they were uniting the Black population, and again, you know that the West and the US will not allow that. I mean, they just won't. Um, what they did was when they were sleeping, they went in and they annihilated them. It was a massacre. It was a massacre. So that's who they are. They don't fight fair. They don't. That's why I give Russia so much credit, so much credit. And I wish that El-Kebulin would learn from Russia. Russia has armed itself to the teeth, to the teeth, that they are they were they are overarmed, so that the US will never come against them, just them and Russia. They won't. That's why you see with this Ukraine situation, the US has gotten the UK and all of the other Western nations, and some Eastern as well, to come together so that they can fight Russia. It's not even, anyone else. It's their focus is on Russia because they know that Russia is stronger than them. It is. It is. And it's by design. Russia armed itself by design to make sure that World War II would never happen to them again. Now, I will say this one thing though for Al-Kebulin, it does have a force. They're called the economic. economic freedom fighters. They're in red. Julius Malema, I love him. Oh my gosh. If I
South
believed in,
Africa. Yeah.
yeah, if I believed in like double wives and stuff like I would marry him. But anyway, I don't. So, so, so this man, I mean, from everything that I've learned about him, everything that I've learned about the economic freedom fighters, one, they are in different countries. They're not just in South Africa. Like a large part of what they do is in South Africa, but they're in different countries. So whenever you see the red, that's them. So they are arming themselves. They're armed. They are armed, and they don't take any foolishness from the South Africans. When he sits down and talks to them, he tells them exactly who they are. Like when they say, well, we're African, he's like, no, you're not. You're Europeans. You're just visitors. He says, we're Africans. He said, anybody that comes from any country in Africa here who's Black, they're Africans. He's like, you are not Africans. You will never be Africans. Like, I love him. I'm serious. I love their whole premise. I love their whole ideology. I love that they're strong and nobody comes against them. And he's already said, if someone tries to take my life, he says, that's fine. He says, I'll die a martyr. But if you cut me off, he says, someone else will rise up within our ranks. That's something that has not happened with the Black leaders in the US. They'll get one Black leader and everybody will rally around him. And I'll just use Martin Luther King as an example. When they took out Martin Luther King Jr., everything died, or pretty much everything died. So what they need to do and what other countries in Alkebulan need to do is rally around like entities like we'll just say the EFF. So because these men are, and women, because there's some women in that as well, are strong. They're fighters. They're not taking any foolishness from the West and from the colonizers that are still on the continent. So I will give Alkebulan that. They do have the EFF. And again, they are spread out through all of Alkebulan. They're focused on South Africa, but he says that they're everywhere. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that is a kind of idea. In Africa, we are not new to resisting the oppression.
Yes.
We're not new to it. We have a lot of people that have been killed by it, and many more will be killed by it. Because as long as Africa is not free, of course, a lot of Africans will remain in chain. That will continuously happen. But there are some who are going to tell you, you take my life or you give me my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that is the only cost of freedom, actually. Because freedom, you don't sign in on contract. You are shown the way out.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only way it's going to happen also in Africa. Those ones that they prepare in London or in Washington or in Paris to tell you are free, I don't believe it.
Yeah, no.
Those
no freedom without
deceptive,
economic freedom.
exactly, those deceptive freedom is what keeps us the way where we are today. But anyway, like I said before, I like to look at our responsibility. That is very important for me. Now, tell us a little bit about your business of connection. Because now we spent a lot of time talking about African defense and all, because they are also very important. They are important, but of course, your business also is important. So tell us something about it. How do you operate?
Okay, so basically, I operate by word of mouth. And I do have a website. It's called Pride of Africa Travel, and prideofafrica.site, and that's Africa with a K. And what I do is I help people who are wanting to create businesses. So it's like a business consultant, as well as helping people with relationship issues. So I did start a channel Finding Love in Africa with Dr. Vondell, and just giving sage advice, about relationships, things that people need to look at as far as themselves, as far as when they're getting involved with other people. Unfortunately, people want to get involved so quickly without getting to know the other person. They get involved sexually, they get involved emotionally, and without getting to know the person as a person. That's very dangerous, because once you get involved sexually, logic leaves, like it flies out the window. So if people don't take anything else away from what I tell them about relationships, it's just take your time, get to know the person. Don't immediately jump into bed with them. Get to know them as a person, get to know their character, get to know their family. Because if you get married, you're not just marrying that person, you're marrying the family as well. So get to know their family. Don't just go on the outer appearance. So many people are saying, oh, he's very handsome, she's beautiful. Well, that's great, but what about their character? Does when it's all said and done, does their character match with that outer appearance? Is their heart, for you? Is their heart for what they can get from you? Or is their heart for what they can give you? Love gives. Love doesn't take. Lust takes. That's where you get, people getting involved with other people to take advantage of them. And they can take advantage in different ways. It's not just sexually. They can take advantage of them financially. I've heard of people in the diaspora getting married very quickly to people on the continent without getting to know them. And they get involved with them sexually. And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that sex is a bad thing. Sex is beautiful. It is. But if you're relying on that as the foundation for the relationship, it's not going to last. Again, going back to some of the stories that I've heard, horror stories that I've heard, where the diaspora will marry someone because they've had sex with them or because they become emotionally involved with them, and the person exploits them financially and then they leave them, or they marry them, they get to come to the US or other countries like the UK or other areas outside of the continent, and then they leave them, or they stop having sex with them, and then they start doing other things. So it seems like common sense to just take your time to get to know someone, but it's not common if so many people are being taken advantage of. So just my advice is take your time, get to know them, get to know their character. Yeah.
All right. So, who is the main target of this business, of this consultation, or your relationship consultation business?
Okay. So a lot of the people that I work with are on the continent, and a lot of them are men. These guys are really pretty amazing people, but they move too fast. They're not getting to know the people that they're getting involved with. Like I'll use one example of this brother that contacted me, and he said that, he fell in love. And I said, "Oh, that's great. Like, how long did you know each other?" And it wasn't long. It was like weeks, and how can you fall in love with someone in weeks? Like, you can fall in love with the image of them. You can fall in love with the idea of them. But ultimately, to know somebody, it takes time. It takes time. So again, getting to know like their family, getting to know Like if you've never fought, like if you've never had an argument, that argue first. See how they argue. Do they put up a wall and they distance themselves from you? Do they withhold emotional warmth from you? Like how do they fight? How do they resolve conflict? You need to know that because everything's not going to be, roses and, butterflies in a relationship. You're going to have conflict. And so you need to know how each other resolves conflict. You need to know about their parents. How are their parents still together? You know, what about their siblings? Do they get along with their siblings? How many siblings do they have? Are they an only child? There's so much to get to know. And if you're saying that that you fell in love with someone, but do you know that person? Like, do you know their favorite color? Do you know their favorite food? Do they want to stay in El Kebulin? Do they want to go to another country? All of these things are the things that you should find out during the dating process or during the courting process, instead of just saying, oh, I love this person because, of some superficial reason it's not going to hold weight. Like, I've had a couple of people approach me and say that they love me, and the one person, he's French, or he's from a French African nation, and I met him on LinkedIn, and he's saying, I want you to listen to me and listen to me seriously. He
Okay.
says, yeah. So I said, oh, okay, I'm listening. So he says, I want you to marry me. And I said, but you don't know me. Like, you don't know me. You know an image, you know my posts, but you've never really talked to me. Like, you don't know anything about my family. You don't know anything about my background. You don't know anything about my direction. And I believe the saying that unless two be agreed, how can they walk together? In other words, if we're not in agreement, how can we walk together? How can we have a life together? Like, you don't know my worldview. Like, you see my postings, so you know some of what I believe. But how do you know that that's true? How do you know I'm not just saying that just to be saying that to get likes, or you know what I mean? Like, you don't know anything about me, so how can you say you love me, and how can you propose marriage to me? It's like the example that I gave you of Julius Malema. Like, I'm saying, oh, I love him. No, I love the ideology of him. In reality, I love the ideology of him. So I don't know anything about him personally. He could be an abuser. You don't know, like, you don't know. You know what I mean? So if I was serious about him, I would take the time to get to know him. I would reach out to him. I would go to South Africa or wherever he was to get to know him as a person, and I would take my time to get to know him. And yeah, I believe in what he stands for with the EFF, but that's not just him. That's his movement. That's not him personally. So, and the same with me. People can say, oh, I love you because of your appearance, or I love you because of this or that. Well, that's all superficial. That's all superficial. What about me as far as my heart? What about these people, these men and these women that you're meeting? What about them as far as their hearts? Yeah, they might be successful financially, but what about if they lose their money? Will you still love them? You know what I mean? Like, so there has to be more to it than these superficial things.
Okay, it's true that we are looking at a way that we can do businesses. That is one of the things that we are concentrating on here. But why the relationship can also be a very interesting thing. But since this is not this is not my experience, I don't have any experience on that. I want you to tell me, what do African American feel about Africans in terms of maybe getting into a relationship? I had a friend of mine who were staying here together. One day he met an African American woman. So he went to the US. They're married, they have a child. So it's not something that is strange completely. But you tell me, what do African American, maybe women in this case, feel about African men that they might like to get in contact with?
So they believe that African men are very charming, because you're very charming, handsome, hardworking, but there is a imbalance as far as wages. So many Africans who come to or who leave Africa and go to different countries, they do really well. Typically they do well. You know, they're intelligent, they're talented, they're creative, they're extremely motivated, and they do well. I'm not sure where the disconnect is on the continent, though. I mean, there are some people who do really well. Usually, when I see politicians, they do well. But I'll just use Ghana as an example. The disconnect with finances turns some women in the diaspora off about getting involved with African men, because of that disconnect with finances. Typically, diaspora women want men to do as well as them or better financially. So because there has been a disconnect with that, there is some issues with getting involved with them, with African men. But there are some women that don't care. There are some that don't care, because of the way that African men treat them. They treat them quite well. So it depends on the woman. It depends on the woman, but typically there's that disconnect because of finances. And um, even though the dollar goes further in the continent, in most countries, um, there's that disconnect with what Africans make as far as a wage, and what the type of lifestyle that the diaspora is used to. So, and again, I'll use Ghana as an example, because when I was there, and I wrote, this in my assessment, my final assessment of my travels there, was that Ghana has a lot of potential. It really does. But the infrastructure is really lacking in a lot of areas. I mean, around the governmental buildings, the infrastructure is beautiful. The roads are nice. But like, I went to Tema, and one of my connections, his uncle, no, his cousin had this house. It was a mansion. It was gorgeous, like gorgeous. I'm very impressed with it. Very nice, good. But the road leading up to the mansion, okay, it's not funny. It's just, I don't understand why. Okay, so you're able to afford, and all of the people that lived on that road were able to afford like these gorgeous mansions, mini mansions. I love it. I love to see everyone doing well. I do. I believe that that's God's will for everyone to do well, especially if you're on the continent. You should be doing well, because it's a continent and there's so many resources there. But why, if you live in a mansion, would you not pave your road? Like, why is your road full of potholes and dirt roads? And like, I don't understand. Like, that's a disconnect for me. So, and again, I understand that it's a work in progress. I get it. You know, a lot of people are saying that they've been saying the same thing for years, and the politicians are saying that they're going to, fix the roads. Right. But if they're saying the same thing for years, why are you still voting for them? Like, make them work they work for you. Like, you pay their salaries. I assume that the taxes pay their salaries. The same here. So if they're not doing what they're supposed to do as far as the infrastructure, stop voting for them. Hold them to a standard, you know? So I said all of that just to say that some people are doing really well. Like, my friends or my connections cousin, he's in the oil business, so he's doing well. But around him doesn't look well. Like, his house is gorgeous, but around him doesn't look well. So for the diaspora women, if you took, if he was single, which he's not, if he took a woman to his house, she would be asking the same things that I'm asking. Like, why? Like, you live in this beautiful home. It's gated. It's gorgeous. But why don't you take the initiative to work with your neighbors and build your road? Like, pave it. It shouldn't be that much. Like, if all of you can afford mansions and mini mansions, you all can band together and fix your roads so that when you're driving up to your houses, your car is not your car is not going to get injured because it hits a pothole, or heaven forbid, you should be coming at night where there's no street lights either, but that's, and say you had a few drinks. Not that I'm condoning drinking or anything like that, but people are going to do what they're going to do.
By the way, we need to have this conversation. We need to talk. We need to talk about this, because this is the conversation that between Africans at home and Africans in the diaspora. Let's talk. Let's gist. Let's try to understand each other. What do we feel about each other? No,
Mhm.
I get it.
Yeah.
Now, apart from that, what other feeling do you think really exists between Africans at home and Africans in the diaspora? Apart from that disconnect that you already made mention of, and also have given example, which of course, yeah, that actually can be expanded to cover some certain area, but it's okay. I just leave it there so we can progress.
One is the financial disconnect. Another thing is that, like the example that I used with the guy from the French African nation, proposing marriage and, his love. And it's been a couple. So is that African men move really fast emotionally or in their commitment to wanting a relationship to go further fast. So, and that kind of scares some, excuse me, diaspora off because because they're not used to. I think they're used to Black men or men in the diaspora, in the countries that they're from, not acting like that. Like, they get to know you. Like, they take their time. Some of them do get involved sexually, like, fast. But with African men, it just seems like they move extremely fast, very fast, emotionally. And I asked a couple of my friends who are on the continent about that, and they said that they both said the same thing. So I so I think this might be just the frame of mind that African men have, is that the diaspora think too much on relationships or about relationships instead of just following their heart, which is what the two African men told me, is that Africans follow their heart. When they meet someone and they feel that connection, they don't need to overthink it. They don't need to, meet everybody. They don't need to like get to know you more. They don't need to, they just know like in their heart that this is the person for me. This is the, like I've met my wife, I've met my, person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And that there's a disconnect with that because the diaspora don't move that fast. Like we don't. We don't. Yes, we might overthink things. Maybe they're right about that. But I don't think it's so much that we're overthinking it. I mean, we can be attracted to someone, but we want to get to know that person. We don't want it just to be, okay, he's handsome, he's, got a nice build, he's intelligent, he's got a lot of things going for himself, but we also want to know, like, who are you? Like that saying that I gave you earlier, unless two be agreed, how can they walk together? Like, are we going to be in agreement? Do we have things in common? It can't be like like one of my friends when I was there had so much fun with him in Ghana, and he introduced me to palm wine. Love palm wine. And he introduced me to a lot of different foods and, beaches and things like that. And all of that was fun. You know what I mean? Like, but a relationship is more than palm wine. A relationship is more than food. A relationship is more than beaches or parks. It's more than just hand holding and fun. It's more than that. It has to be, like, do you want kids? Like, do you want kids? I've seen, and I'll use the same person as an example. Like, I love kids. Like, these little kids would come up to me and oh my gosh, they were so beautiful. They were so beautiful. They have that dark skin and just like, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And he would shoo them away. Like it was a couple of little boys. They came up to me and they were following me. And I was just like, turning around, I was like talking to them. And the one, he was like gesturing like he was hungry. And so, I was telling him I didn't have any food, but I had water. So I was giving him my water, and my friend, he was looking at me like, don't give him your water, and that really and that really kind of turned me off, because I was thinking, but he's thirsty. Like, why would you not, like, he's your kinfolk, or he's a Ghanaian, like he's a little child Ghanaian. And so why wouldn't you have more compassion on him than I have compassion on him? So that kind of turned me off. So my point with that is that unless two be agreed, how can they walk together? So if my heart is if I had food, I would have given it to him. If I had extra water, I would have given it to him. But if that's not my partner's heart, then why is that? Like, we're not in agreement, and I'm just using that as an example. But so yeah, so the disconnect is that with finances, and then that they move really quickly. So yeah, I mean,
So what would you recommend maybe for some of your clients, okay, your prospects, in this case, the diaspora, who want to get kind of involvement in Africa in this line? What would you, because now you have seen both sides, I want to believe, because you'll be there. So tell me, what would be your recommendation?
My recommendation is always the same. Just get to know them. Like, even though I know they're moving fast, like they're saying they love you, they want to marry you the first week. But just tell them, like, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, and let's get to know each other. Because if she is attracted to him, she's going to want to get to know him. She's going to want to get to meet his family, because again, you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying the family. If the family has some behaviors that she may not be in agreement with, um, that they've got to discuss that. The relationship has to be transparent. Without transparency on both people's side, it's not going to work. Like, if there's secrets, if there's things that are questionable, that are not being discussed, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to last.
For people that want to connect with you because of what you do, how can they connect with you? How can they benefit from your services? So we are towards the ending of it now.
Okay. So they can benefit from the services because I do provide business consultations on how to help them to improve their business. Also, as far as relationships, how to, again, like I said before, how to build healthier relationships, and those areas that they need to work on within themselves so that they can be the right person. I can help them with that. And yeah, and just helping them to identify places on the continent. My focus again has been Ghana, but if there's other places on the continent that they may want to look into, there are some countries that don't require a visa. Ghana does require a visa. And Ghana does require that you're vaccinated. So that has been a problem for some of the diaspora, because they don't believe in the shot. So, I mean, I don't believe in the shot either, but there are ways around it. So, but yeah, so if they're willing to go through those things, it's.
All right. Thank you so much. So what would be your final statement here, your final thought on the conversation that we have had today?
So I really want to thank you again, Obehi, that, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I feel that I've probably gone on some tangents here and there, but if people want to take away anything, is just, especially in the diaspora, come to the continent. Don't be afraid. Don't believe the hype and the lies of the media and the propaganda to keep you away. Alkebulan is beautiful. There's so many beautiful countries to see that are built up. I mean, they look like any city in the US or the UK or other, areas that are, doing well. So get to know it for yourself. Do your research. There's so many videos on all of the different countries that give you a tour, like a virtual tour of the countries. So this is home. Alkebulan is home. I'll be there in a few weeks permanently because I'm done. I'm done with the West. But yeah,
you are going there permanently. That is interesting.
Yeah. So I'll be there, permanently. I don't know if the country that I'm going to will be the country that I stay for good, but it'll be a start. I do.
Welcome home, sister. You're welcome home.
Yes. Thank you so much. I do want to go to South Africa, not to, stalk Julius Malema or anything, but I do want to see it. I do want to experience it. I do want to go to Mali. I mean, there's so many different countries on the continent that I do want to see and experience, but I would just say for all the diaspora, it is home. Africa is the Holy Land. Africa, Alkebulan, I use them interchangeably, but it's our origins, whether you want to acknowledge it as that or not. And I get that, our forefathers were sold into slavery. I get that. I get it. But can we continue to punish the whole continent for the mistake of a few people, for the mistake of a few stupid people? Because that was just stupid to do that to us. But yeah, don't hold them. Don't hold the whole continent guilty. It's home. And you'll never be treated as well anywhere as home. You won't be seen as a color. You won't be seen as less than. Actually, they'll treat you pretty well, because when I was there, they treated me really well. Some of them referred to me as a white woman, which offended me, but I understand I have light skin, but I'm not white. That's an insult. I'm not the enemy. I'm your brother and I'm your sister. So, yeah. But come home, even if it's just for a visit.
That's powerful. That's it. The remaking of Africa, the retelling, the reshaping of Africa require all of us in the diaspora to mingle with those at home. Because like you say, yeah, this is home. It's our only true home.
Yes.
It is a home of humanity.
Yes.
But this is our home as Africans.
Yes.
We must look for a way to connect.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
thank you so
air
much.
is better. The air smells better. The food is the fruit. I mean, I thought they were putting sugar on the fruit, but it's just because it's organic and it's natural, and it's from the earth. It's from Mother Africa's earth. It is so good. Like, everything there is just it's so much better, and you have to experience it for yourself.
You're welcome home.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, yeah.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.